Hello, this is Michael Ensor with Advertising Report Card. Today, we are going to be jumping into the PPC campaign for Sunnyland Farms. So this could be considered out of the gate an initial review with a lot of items. So please make sure to go back and go through that if you have any questions about the different individual pieces. There will also be a list of notes regarding what we're going to be covering. But there are a dozen key points that are going to be covered in this video. And for that reason, we're going to make this PPC specific. We're not going to cover multiple avenues, and we are going to jump right in. So out of the gate, what we have in the past 30 days, I'm comparing with the past 2 years of traffic. Reason being is that we want to see if just the past 30 days have any anomalies and if anything's changed specifically. Over the past 2 years, cost per click has gone up extremely when it comes to what is happening on the search market because of vendor competition and then also different things that have been introduced. So what our goal here today is to figure out how to maximize impression share while keeping costs low and just making sure that the different items on a technical level are being covered. So out of the gate, the main thing that we want to look at right now for these campaigns is the impression share. So as you can see on the brand, we're almost covering on the top 3 or top 4 positions, 94%, 93%, which is good. But if you're looking at the #1 placement, we're about 82%. Now that's on the branded terms. So we're supposed to be winning this traffic 100% of the time. Reason being is that it will always be the cheapest cost per conversion because people are looking for that initial company. It'll always convert the highest and it'll always produce the most. So the very first thing I would say is we want to maximize impression share in the brand. And there's a few ways that we're going to be able to do that, including figuring out why we are losing that impression share, which as you can see here, 50% is lost due to rank and almost none is lost due to budget. So that's what we're really going to be looking at too, is what we can do to improve the ranking on the brand campaign out of the gate. Another one is the actual product campaign for search. There's a search campaign and there's a shopping campaign. On the search campaign, we're just showing search ads specifically for the products that we're looking to sell. And inside of this campaign, which has the most budget right now, as you can see, we are converting, but we're not converting nearly as high as the brand campaign. And there's going to be several reasons why that is. But again, the main thing that we're looking at right here is the impression share. What are we doing to drive traffic at these levels and why isn't it converting? So we're going to dive in off this specific campaign on the Pecans because inside of this, there's multiple ad groups that are focused on different items. But the main thing is the Pecan specific general ad group and how we can maximize the sales from this. And then thereafter, discussing the other products and how we might be able to include and prioritize them. That's going to also require a little bit of feedback from the business because we want to know what products we can push that have the best margins that we can also convert for on search. So with the loss due to rank, the main thing that we're going to really want to look at, let me bring my notes over here just so I can show you, is how we can increase these items. So the quality of the ads is a big part of it, but lining up the keywords better and making sure the keywords in the ads match the landing pages and the offers is a match semantically is really going to be the main thing that you're going to want to look at, because quality score is measured by a lot of different things. But one of the easiest ways that we can line these up is by making sure that the way that people are searching for your product and we're showing the ads have a semantic match, whether it's in the descriptions line 1 and 2 or in the headline, but then also making sure that how people are looking for these products match the landing page semantically. So on the actual report that was pulled from search, you can see here that the most popular searches are going to be direct for these specific products and keywords. When you start to scroll down to the more of the nuances, there are some different items that are lower hanging fruit that we are showing ads for, but we're not actually targeting them. So there's competitors, as you can see here, and competitor is no longer a huge focus. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus just on the campaigns that we're looking at right now, which is brand. And just to confirm, SLF Pecans. So 1 second. Let me filter this out for us. So the first thing we're going to want to look at is we have investment on these top level keywords, and you can see that these keywords have been added. The only thing that I'm concerned about immediately is keyword cannibalization. So what you can see out of the gate, let me move my notes over here again, just to keep everything cleaned up as we look at this view together, is that we have the two campaigns that are taking the majority of the investment, and there's keywords in each campaign that are competing with each other. So this is effectively a smoking gun on this campaign. Reason being is what ends up happening is between the two campaigns, the keywords compete with each other. And what it's called is bid cannibalization, is that these campaigns are raising the overall cost per click on these keywords. And essentially what's going to happen is the quality score is going to go down because Google's not going to know where to serve the ad from. Are we serving from this campaign because of the specific targeting, or are we going to be serving from the other campaign? And how that works also is the keyword structure based off of what is inside the campaign. So the initial recommendation on these is inside the brand campaign, we should be creating some SCAG ad groups that focus specifically on the phrase and exact match of the brand terms that are coming through. And instead of having them all in one ad group and competing to see what's going to show, since what's actually showing for each keyword is very similar, we're going to want to make sure that we can have that be in separate ad groups with ad copy that matches how people are searching for this. Now, there are ways that you can have dynamic keyword insertion in the ads, and that can work. And what that means is that you have a placeholder in the ad that populates what the person is searching. But since this is just a one-to-one match across 3 different keywords, that would be my recommendation. And the reason being is that you're going to be able to control the bid better on these, and you're going to be able to prevent them from competing with each other. As far as the broad match modified keywords go, another thing too to consider is that within the past 90 days, Google has been recommending moving away from broad match modified keywords and moving towards phrase, because phrase keywords are going to pick up the outliers. And essentially phrase is going to start acting like broad match modified. It's not 100%, as you can see here. Google hasn't necessarily deprecated broad match modified, but they have made it public that they're moving towards that. In addition, having the exact keyword variation is going to be something that's going to help you focus 100% budget on that keyword. And since that keyword is going to be exact and the variation is going to be in the ad as well, that's going to help with the quality score. One of our big problems with impression share, as mentioned about 6 minutes ago in this video, is that we're losing not because of the budget, but because of the quality. So the one thing that you can always look for in these campaigns is how can you iron out quality on something that's such a verbatim search, like the brand name itself. And that's the way you would want to do it. Single keyword ad groups. So I always recommend them. Absolutely not. Reason being is that sometimes it can scale into a process where you have thousands of ad groups when you're just creating them without actually like a logical reason or explanation. In this situation on the brand campaign, since you have multiple keywords triggering the same search term, spacing those out and then letting them allocate budget towards those individual types of searches, as an example, just Sunnyland, is something that you can absolutely do, and then allocate budget and bids differently. And what that also means is on the bid adjustment level for these ad groups, it looks like Sunnyland Farms verbatim searched on these top 3 is going to be the majority of the spend across all the campaigns, just because of how commonly it's searched. In this report alone, there has been 8,100 bid on these terms. Having this specifically in its own category, and then having maybe even just one additional ad group with the variations. But the main thing is letting the ad groups not bid against each other. And the way that you can also do that is managing the negative keywords on the ad group level on the brand campaign. So that's the main thing that I would say that really could get ironed out, is expanding and ironing out the brand campaign. Because again, if you look at the stats, this is going to always be your majority breadwinner. And if you're losing traffic to somebody else, what the problem is with that is that you're going to be giving away effectively sales. And what that looks like just on the brand campaign alone, if you go to the auction insights underneath the keyword tab, you can see that nuts.com is directly bidding on Sunnyland Farms traffic. And while we are netting a great top of page rate right here at 91% and the absolute at 82, if you actually look at the difference between the person who's bidding against you, we are effectively being outranked by 35%, which is 1 in 3 searches. That's a pretty big number, and it's something that would definitely want to be prioritized. The reason being, again, is if you look at the actual, pardon me, if you look at the actual sales potential that's lost when it comes to missing out on that budget and then filling the gap based off of what is lost, there's a lot more sales that can be added and a lot more revenue that is being missed. I'm going to explain this table at the end of the video, but I wanted to emphasize the value of closing in on this impression share, what we could do to accomplish that, and how much more revenue you can generate from making those changes. So next, what we want to look at as well are on the product side of things. I'm going to pull up a screenshot right now. As you can see, we have Georgia pecans, pecans for sale, and then just pecans. And you can see the variations of keywords that are triggering for these items. Now, these search terms have been added, but what's actually triggering these searches are different keywords inside of that ad group. So the other thing I was going to say is when it comes to your top products, not all products, not every product needs a single keyword ad group, but when it comes to your #1 sales generators, you're gonna wanna be careful about how you want to push these individual items. Because if you're looking at Georgia pecans, we're triggering this search for just pecans. So if you actually look at the ad copy and then the landing page, people who are just looking for pecans versus Georgia pecans versus pecans for sale, not only does that mean different intention as far as sales go, pecans for sale is somebody who has buying intent versus somebody just searching the word pecans. It's a little bit looser. You're going to want to break those out into single keyword ad groups so that you can properly allocate budget. Likewise, again, to speak about the difference between broad batch, modified, and phrase, pecan versus pecans, you're gonna have a situation where Google's cherry picking different variations that are all wrapped in the same ad group because they're all able to show for these searches. But at the end of the day, if you had a phrase or an exact match Georgia pecans keyword generating this traffic, you're going to be able to more easily optimize the keyword to the ad copy to the landing page, and your quality score will go up, which is going to not only lower your cost per click, but again, not to continue to repeat the main focus, but I really want to drive this point home. Sorry about that, is the impression share. We want to make sure that we're maximizing impression share. There is a few things that are going to make a difference as big as that. So we're going to want to make sure that this is a top priority when it comes to the campaign. Moving on, if you'd like to take a quick break and pause, this is a great time for you to hop into the campaigns and take a look around at what we've been discussing. If you'd like to continue, we would absolutely like to as well. So let's move into the next items. Things that we should be looking at that are not done on this account. And I would willing to wager that it's based off of budget allocation, which we'll be able to talk about options that you guys have at the end of this, is display remarketing and YouTube remarketing. So every click that you pay for in these campaigns, which let's look at that right now. Your average cost per click on brand is always going to be cheaper because it's your one-to-one to your domain. This is your company. Your brand is going to generate the cheapest cost per click and also the highest sales. Every time you spend $1, $2, $10, regardless, the main thing is that you drove new or evergreen or even repeat traffic back to your website. Reason being is that maybe someone shopped with you before, maybe they shopped with a competitor, or maybe they're just looking for the product and never bought before online. If they click and they spend that money, you're going to get some conversions. So our conversion rate on Pecans right now is at 2.83%. So out of 100 people that clicked your ads, 2 or 3 people made a purchase. So the issue with this is that there's no follow-up campaign on the PPC side. Now on the social ad side, there might be, that's something we'll get to in the other video when we drill down to social ads. The main thing here is that also remarketing, once somebody goes to your site and they're cookied, the actual cost of serving them that next ad, especially when it comes to display, like a banner ad or YouTube, like just a YouTube video, you are able to get that number increased greatly. If you were to just double this number, you can see the investment in general could also double. But the main thing is that the cost per click and the ability to show an ad and follow up with that person is going to be extremely low compared to how much you paid for that initial click. An example of what low looks like is on the shopping campaign, you can see that the actual cost per click is 44 cents. Why would that be so cheap? Reason being is that the actual cost to show an ad 1,000 times, which is CPM, you can see the definition right here, is much cheaper because of the placement of the ad. The shopping campaigns have less competition for Pecans. That's an easy explanation as to why the CPM is lower. Less people are bidding on the space, which means that the cost per click is lower. So the overall cost to show the ads is going to be lower as well. They're comparative, which is important to understand. CPC is cost per click. CPM is cost per 1,000 impressions shown. When you're doing a search campaign, you're bidding for the cost per click, and you're looking to keep your cost per sale lower and continuing to lower. When it comes to display, you have such a cheap opportunity to show ads that by the time somebody clicks on the ad, it's going to be a much cheaper cost per click. As you can see here, we're going to get 3 times as many clicks from this campaign because of the cheaper cost per click. The thing about remarketing is that when you have somebody's browser cookied with a remarketing pixel or cookie or tracking, however, whichever channel you're using, on PPC specifically, your CPM is going to be extremely low. In many cases, it will range in the 10 cent or lower range. Now, you can get that CPM on YouTube and banner ads without having remarketing. And that's a very powerful campaign strategy. But let's say we have a limited budget. Let's say we can't just spend as much as we want. If you have somebody who's visited your site and you're serving them banner ads and YouTube ads, not only are you going to net them back on conversions, but since they already visited the site, they already know who you are. They've already shown their interest by browsing a specific product. So if you try to push ads back to someone who hit, as an example, a Georgia Pecans page with a Georgia Pecans YouTube ad and Georgia Pecans banner ads, the CPM will be anywhere between 1 and 10 cents. It can actually get that low. But not only that, your CTR is going to be much greater than just a prospecting or an evergreen display campaign. As you can see here, the CTR is 5.33 on search, but on this shopping campaign, it's much lower. On a remarketing campaign, you would be looking to have essentially a double of the CTR with maybe a CPM of $1 or less downwards to 10 cents. So if you did the math on that, not only are you going to be generating a lot of traffic, almost as much traffic potentially as your search campaign itself, but the cost to generate that traffic is going to be very low. And the conversion rate for a display campaign, not always the best, but in a remarketing strategy, it will always be something that's going to be better than a prospecting campaign. So if we're looking to really maximize the search, again, just in summary, we have to figure out ways to maximize impression share. Google's going to tell you why you've lost your impression share. As you can see here, a lot of it has to do with rank. So by fixing the structure of the keywords, the way that they are implemented with ad copy, so that the ad copy is unique to the search query, and then if it lands on the landing page, you're going to have a lower search losses to rank, which means you're going to have a higher impression share. Your quality score is going to go up, so your impression on the top 3 positions, and then also the absolute #1 position will also increase. So there's a lot of value in just restructuring that, but let's say past that point, how can you retain people who hit your search campaign by using a remarketing campaign? If we look at this budget spread between 50, 70, and 100, we're going to hop into the budget discussion now. what you can see is we have about a $4,000 a month budget, and this is how it's spread out. Right now, display on the remarketing side has 0 budget. So with just us losing impression share to quality and to budget, if we were to move this around, what we could do effectively by eliminating the shopping campaign is increasing the budget on the search. And then we won't be able to increase much on the brand. We would effectively just be moving 10 to search. Why that is a big impact is if you look at the overall 2-year expenditure on conversions, Pecans on the search versus the SLF shopping campaign, the conversion rate on search is almost 6%. Shopping is 1.45. If you have the budget to run shopping ads, absolutely do it. But if you are losing impression share on your #1 dominating campaigns, I would always recommend taking your budget and maximizing the budget across the campaigns that are going to generate you the most revenue. Take that revenue and make the case to increase your budget on the channel, knowing that beyond a reasonable doubt, if you were to add that budget, you're going to get more revenue. And then it really becomes a discussion of margin. How can you make sure that you're net profit positive? Because if the campaigns have a cheaper cost per click because you fixed the quality, and then you've also brought them up in search so that every time they get a click or an impression, they're more likely to convert, you're leaning more towards profit. And if you can reinvest that into the channel and maximize the channel's ability, all of these different items will be able to fire appropriately so that you can generate the revenue you're looking for. So this recommendation, let me zoom in here to kind of get a little closer. This is the current budget. This recommendation for pushing sales is all about moving the budget out of a campaign, which is shopping, that is not performing as well. The thing about shopping is that it's never going to always perform better than search. In some instances, based off of what industry and product, it can, but mostly search is going to be the one that dominates, just simply because historically and after working on thousands of campaigns, this is just what has occurred. But the thing about shopping is that it also has placement on the page. So let's say you have a shopping ad, and then you have a search ad, and then you have an organic placement. You're appearing on more real estate on the page, which is good for people that are looking for brand recognition. So if you have Nuts.com, who's your direct competitor, showing 3 placements or even 4 if they show up on the maps, and you're showing 2, they're going to subconsciously, inside the 3 to 7 seconds someone takes to actually click on a link, they're going to get more brand recognition from the competitor. So that's what you also have to look at too, is that this recommendation is strictly based off of the statistics that say if we were to add $10 a day to the Pecans campaign, we're going to see a better result. So one other thing I wanted to hop in here real quick and show is on the actual Pecans campaign itself, Google's going to recommend a lot more than just $10 a day. And why this is important is it's to understand that while moving budget around, we still have to operate inside of a finite budget. If this is what we're allocated for in total, we have to make sure that we're not blowing past that and that we're hitting our goals as far as the spend goes, which is important for a lot of people investing in their campaign. But if you also look at the recommendations, first of all, this tab on PPC confirmed by Google, as far as like level 2 support goes, is that if this is at less than 100%, the problem you're going to have is that Google's going to look at this as a non-optimized campaign. Even if the recommendations are silly, like download Google Ads mobile app, by not looking in this area and making sure that you're either hitting this and, which as an example, this isn't a priority, you can dismiss this and understand why. The main thing about this is that it's going to show Google that you're actively engaged in improving the optimization on the campaign. This is a newer feature, but it actually does have an impact. And I had to confirm that in a painstaking way because I asked them 10 times why that was the case, because these are recommendations. How could they possibly impact the quality score of the campaign? Google actually made that into an item. So with that being said, there's also some budget recommendations here. So that is a huge part of what Google is saying. If you were to allocate just a little bit more cost to the campaign, like $10 a day, you're going to get a much more improved, not just more conversions, but your conversion rate will also go up as well. There's going to be multiple statistics that are going to be accompanied by these recommendations. If you ever needed to see something outside of these recommendations, which these are not perfect recommendations, these are just recommended by Google for you to essentially spend more money with them, is to actually do the math and look at, okay, well, what could I do if I was to expand my budget? What would the numbers be? So we're going to go through more of these tables to explain that right now. So let's say that in addition to taking the budget that we have and spending it across more channels, this would be an expanded reach strategy. So with search and brand, what we have here is the allocation, but then we also have the shopping. I think this equation is absolutely not right. So let's change that right now. So what you can see here is we were able to maintain the same budget, but now we're opening ourselves up for exposure on shopping, display, and YouTube. The way that this has been structured is that we have reduced the shopping budget by $6 a day and moved $3 into display and YouTube. Now, you might think to yourself, why would I want to do $3 when it comes to a campaign or $90 a month? Well, that also circles back into our impression share discussion and CPMs. While you might need more budget than in any other category when it comes to Pecans, or especially in brand, again, reason being is that we want to maximize our viewership here. We want to maximize our impression share here, is because the CPMs for these campaigns will be extremely low. So if your CPM is between 1 cent and 10 cents, or even upwards to $1, which on a prospecting campaign for display or YouTube, it might be. On a remarketing campaign, you're looking at maybe even 10 cents. So let's just look at that hypothetically. If we were to divide $3 a day by 10 cents, let's get the numbers correct here, you could be looking at 30 clicks. So what that means as well is that these clicks coming from these campaigns are people that are being remarketed to. So you're looking at, potentially 60 clicks a day for people that have visited your site and they've engaged with your product and shown real buyer intent. So circling back to them while they're already that low in the sales funnel is going to give you the ability to drive that traffic back. And if the conversion rate for remarketing is higher, which typically it is because they've already engaged with your brand and product, you'll be able to net sales from this low of a budget. Again, this is hypothetical. In practice, this is how this works. This could be 1 cent in some instances, or let's just do 3 cents to have a different number. From just deviating a little bit of budget from a display campaign that, again, is not converting at a very high rate because this is a prospecting shopping campaign, you could have 100 additional clicks. These are actual numbers that could be done based off of rolling out a strategy like we discussed. So the next thing I wanted to say here is about revenue. So with search right now, just by itself, if we were to look only at the SLF Pecans campaign, on search, the monthly budget is $2,400. The rest of the budget is going towards brand search, and it's also going towards the shopping campaign. Our loss due to budget over a long span of time has been 26%. So our max impression share, sorry, again, the numbers get a little messed up here. I'll circle back to this number. I just want to get to the next point on this, is that on the loss to budget, this is our current conversions based off of the budget. So the conversion value is 262,000 based off of when this report was pulled. If we were to have zero loss to budget, meaning that if we increase the budget for this campaign alone by 26%, this is what the monthly would effectively be, but this is what the conversions would be. So we could, while spending an additional $6,800 might not be an option on search, understanding if you were to make that investment, what your goal should be, would be about $1 million. So the additional revenue just from this search campaign as is, without optimizing everything else, if we just did one thing and added budget so we had zero impressions lost to budget, you'd have an additional $746,000 in revenue. Again, you have to increase your budget by that much as well, which again might not be feasible. So that also circles back to my initial point, is if we had the discussion on margins and we look at, okay, well, if we spend all this money here, we're going to generate X amount of revenue, and then we're going to have profits. Let's just call it profits 10%. So this would be the profit. So the reallocation of this additional budget into the search campaign by itself, if the profit margin was only 10%, then you're looking at clearing $100,000 in profit based off of these new numbers, which if this was the total overall monthly, you would be at around 10% cost as well. So as far as the numbers go in general, this is a table. I'm going to give it to you guys in the report so you can play with these numbers. But the idea, again, behind it is just looking at what the impression share is for these campaigns, fixing the quality to lower the cost per click, and then seeing what we can do to maximize the impression share. So here's the good news. If we had no additional budget and we increase the quality score of these campaigns, what's going to end up happening is you're not going to lose any of the rank. And if we can just cut down this number by 10, 20%, you're not only going to have a cheaper cost per click, but you're going to have higher ranking. And what that means is you're going to have an ability to sell more, but also it's going to cost you less. So again, this might be a good thing to listen to 1 or 2 times, because the idea of increasing and lowering different bids and budget based off of the statistics in the campaign, you can play with it a little bit. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. But that's pretty much, that's been about a 30-minute review. I'm going to send all my notes over as well. But I'm going to do one more recap. Impression share is your ability to show your ad. If you are a company named, for instance, Sunnyland Farms or Advertising Report Card, and somebody is netting 30% of your traffic, let's say your conversion rate, again, on the brand campaign, 21%. Of the 30% of all traffic you're driving, you could have converted 1 out of 5 of those people. You're greatly increasing your ability to drive revenue. So if you're losing that traffic to a competitor, not only could they be selling to your customers and you could be losing a one-time or even a lifetime customer, it's simply something that you should always maximize. Making sure that your brand campaign is on the, one second, let me show, on the top side. I would always have it be around 95, or potentially, if you could, 99%. You're not always going to show your ad on just the top side. Very important. But on the absolute top, I would always aim for 85 to 90%. Reason being, again, just getting that additional percentage of traffic is going to lead to conversions because people are searching for your core brand. How we can do that out of the gate is to fix the structure of the campaigns and the ad groups to make sure that we're focusing and not competing with ourselves to show ads. And that comes with single keyword ad groups for your top spenders. Luckily for us, just on the structure of these campaigns alone, there's really not too much single keyword ad groups that need to get worked on. Reason being is that the campaigns across all these different products that have existed have been paused. Why? That also could have something to do with profit margin, but most likely it has something to do with results. We weren't getting the results that we were looking for. If you look at the actual search terms that we're targeting, these are all very simple keywords and very simple search terms as well. And last but not least, on the quality side, making sure that as we find other people looking for different terms, that we're also incorporating these. So as you can see here, Sunnyland Farms Pecans is getting picked up by Sunnyland Farms. So inside of the brand campaign, or even breaking out a brand plus product campaign itself to differentiate from the brand campaign and the product campaign, is to just continue to optimize these keywords that are going to be spending the majority of your budget. There's a lot of, a $3,900 budget per month, while it's not, the 10 grand we're looking for to have 100% impression share, it's not a small budget either. So making sure that since we have an impression share issue, that we're maximizing the quality by restructuring these campaigns is going to be essential. In addition to that, opening yourself up to the idea of having a remarketing campaign, even if it's on search, is something I highly recommend. And secret little key piece, if you're still listening, taking this search budget and taking 5 to 10% of it and moving it to Bing, you're going to have a much cheaper cost per click while you'll have much less traffic, because all search volume in the world, about 90% of it's coming from Google and Google products. As you may know, the top search engines are Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Bing. Bing in itself is something that's typically underutilized, and Bing has a shopping campaign now. So you can do even cheaper CPMs by moving just a little bit of budget from Google over to Bing. So there's a list of items that I highly recommend on this campaign, but my prediction is if we kept at the same budget and reduced the cost, reduce the impression loss to rank by about 50%, bringing it from 70% down to 30%. What you're really going to be looking at is your ability to not have to spend an additional penny next month, but you could potentially increase your sales by 10 to 30%. So that's a pretty big number to walk away with. I hope that in itself is more valuable than just some essential optimization strategy, because it really comes with okay, well, if we do this, this is what we can expect. Maybe that'll open you up to allocating some money to getting the technical side of this done. But in addition to that as well, if we can take that additional 10 to 30% in sales by fixing the quality score issue, you can convince the powers that be to take that budget and then allocate it into the remarketing campaigns. Then you're going to take all the sales traffic that you lost at this 22% conversion rate, and maybe you can net an additional 10 conversions at a CPM that is 100 times cheaper than what we're dealing with right now. You see right here. If we can get this CPM remarketing to search down below $1, you're going to net a decent amount of conversions just from that traffic alone as well. So there's a lot of room for improvement here, and hopefully the improvements will lead to further investment into this channel, because it's clear that there's a lot of revenue to be driven from PPC alone, and this doesn't include the conversation with social and any other items. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, of course, let me know. I'm happy to run you through this and discuss it. This is Advertising Report Card. Michael Ensor. I hope you enjoyed it.